Has your little one ever said to you, "Mummy, when can I dance on my toes?" I think this must be something that has been asked of every single dance mum, every single mum whose little girl or boy does ballet, and they've seen films like Ballerina or any other film basically where ballet is involved, or they've maybe been lucky enough to actually go to the ballet and seen dancers dancing on point and wondering why they can't do that now. And I know it's so tempting to say, yeah, we'll get that done soon, but it is really important that we bide our time. Unfortunately, there have been quite a few social media posts where they've shown really young children on point, and the problem with this is that yes, those children have been in full-time training in quite extreme schools, and in certain countries it's seen as a bonus to go on point early because your ankle's still flexible. However, the general consensus in much of the modern dancing world, certainly in the UK, you've got a company called the IADMS, which is the International, I'm going to have to read it off my page, the International Association of Dance Medicine and Science. And their recommended age, after years of research, is between 11 and 12. And realistically, I think I've put one dancer on point at age 11, and she was particularly strong. She had all the elements had been ticked off, and she was undergoing not quite full-time training, but quite intense training. So, and she's gone on to train to become a professional dancer. So, you know, there are gradients going, but realistically, most of the dancers I put on point are at least 12 years old. Now, reaching 12 years old doesn't necessarily mean, yes, I'm 12, I can go on point. There's also age, there's readiness, and also maturity of physicality, not just maturity of behaviour, although that mental maturity is really important, but actual maturity of your growth. Generally, we like our dancers to have at least started their growth spurt. I know some dancers start it really late, and that's always really frustrating for them because we're saying, you need to wait a bit longer. But in the long run, if you're working well and you're really working on the strength of your ankles and pointing your feet, it's never really that late. Yeah, you can start point work well into your later teens. If you've been working your ankles correctly, it's not too late to go on point, okay? 12 is not the cut-off point, basically. So you need to be 11 or 12. You should also be kind of in your 4th year of dance training, maybe 2 years if you've been working really hard and doing lots of classes, and you should be doing class twice a week, ideally at a minimum. You really want to be doing, several dance classes a week at this stage because it is the precursor to professional training. I know not all dancers who go on point go to be professional dancers. However, it is a professional element of their training, and it's quite a serious element, and they need to really have understood the technique and the build-up leading up to it. All that taken into account, I do need to give you the warning of what can happen if you go up too early. There are some teachers who will put their children on points at about age 9, something like that, and they haven't grown, their bones are still slightly soft, they might not have the strength, and that's what you might see. You might see some superstars like at the Y-Gap competition performing on point. However, I've seen some really disturbing videos of young children doing really advanced movements on point, which are risky. Number one, you just run the risk of going over on your ankle, which can cause a fracture or a ligament tear, and they take ages to heal. So not only does that put you out of dance training for months and months and months sometimes, but also it might never heal completely. Yeah, I broke my foot about 10 years ago, and I still get little niggles as a result of the tendon damage that went around that break. So you want to avoid those kind of injuries. Also, there's a definite serious risk, might not be that common, but there's a serious risk of going on point on bones that are too soft that can cause permanent deformation to those bones. If your bones are still forming, they're so tiny in your toes, especially children's toes, they can actually start to get misshapen if you're putting your entire body weight onto your toes, because you are like that on point. You're not like that. Even if you were like that, you'd end up like giving yourself really damaged knuckles. The other thing is that at that age, you just aren't strong enough. You might not have the strength of ankle. You might have really lovely bendy ankles, so you might have what we call the 90-degree plantar flexion, but you might not have the strength to hold that, again, running the risk of injury. Or you might not have enough plantar flexion. If your foot's like that when you point it, ideally you want it to be like that, or with a slight arch when you point your foot, but if it's like that, it means you can't go up on point properly, so you're kind of like that, falling off your platform. So again, that causes strain on the calf, the torso, the hips. All this can get strained as a result. Or you just might not have strength, because it's not just your feet that are going on point, it's your entire body. So you need strength in your core. You need to be able to hold your hips neutral. You need to be able to turn those legs out and hold that turnout. When you're on flat foot, you've got a whole foot providing the slight friction and grip to keep yourself turned out. When you go on point, you've got a little circle about that big. So you're using your muscles to hold your turnout. Otherwise you'll just go parallel and not be able to perform some of the movements, because in parallel that just doesn't create the right line for ballet. And also ballet is done turned out on purpose so that the movements are easier to make. It gives you freedom of movement in your hip socket for the sideways actions. Okay, so quite a few reasons why you don't want to do it too soon. And as I said, you really can start quite late. So really don't worry, don't stress, don't think, oh my gosh, I'm missing out. If you are working your feet and pointing your feet beautifully, why not take a few extra months to get yourself really strong, rather than risk injuring yourself by trying it too soon when your feet and your legs and everything else isn't ready. So what can we do to prepare ourselves? If your child's under 9, try to keep them inspired, still take them to the ballet, tell them that one day they'll get really good if they work really hard in ballet. Encourage them to listen to their ballet teacher and really work on stretching their legs fully and pointing their feet. I don't mean stretching as in getting the legs up high. I mean when you're doing a tongue, you're really working those leg muscles to make a lovely straight leg with a beautiful pointed foot on the end. So things like that, really working on their pliés, their jumps, making sure that their placement is really, really strong. And that children from about 7 years upwards really care about that. They really care about getting things right. So they're not too young to be working on those things. So some practical things you can do. So if your child is over 9, they can start working on exercises, obviously in conjunction with their teacher, and just thinking a little bit more proactively towards getting strong enough to go on point. So things like being really secure on their placement, making sure that they're holding their hips neutral so that they can work those turnout muscles in the hip sockets and hold those legs turned out really, really well. They can also be doing rises. Now, a lot of teachers at this stage will be doing this anyway. So when you do a rise, you want to make sure that your foot is really in alignment with the rest of your leg. You want to make sure that the weight is between the big toe and the second toe. So you've got to make sure that you get that happy medium. It's so much like Goldilocks, isn't it? Too much one way? No. Too much the other way? No. That is just right, okay? So that way they're working the part of their foot that's going to be lifting them up before you go actually on point. In fact, that's the part that really, that calf and that ankle is what's going to lock them into that point position. Okay, so that's a really good thing to practice. Lots of things like fondus and making sure that when they do their pliés, when they do their fondus, their knees are aligned over their toes. So things like that, just really working really diligently in their classes and really focusing with their attention on the details. That will really, really help them get super strong. So when they do get to the age where they're starting to think about point work and doing the actual point preparation exercises, they're already halfway there, okay? There are quite a few specific exercises that I teach in order to prepare the tiny toe muscles for going on point, and the metatarsal muscles and the core muscles. And there's a really good sheet that I think this is more for teachers as opposed to parents, but there's a really good sheet that I give to all my dancers which was created by Anna Morgan, whose IG profile is Anna Morgan Dance. And she created this fantastic worksheet, and it goes into the ins and outs of point work, and it also gives you some really, really good exercises that are a real clear indicator of when you're ready to go on point. There are more exercises you'd need to build up to, which is why you'd want to do this with a teacher, but they're quite clear indicators that someone is ready. Once they can tick those boxes, that's a fair indicator that that person is ready to go on point. I would also say lots of core exercises, really working on getting that core super, super strong so that you can hold your hips neutral. That's a really good one to be thinking about prior to going on point. So lots to think about. I will actually be making a whole video of exercises to build up towards going on to point, and also some exercises on how to build up to get to the right stage in your work so that you can actually pass those tests that I was mentioning that Anna Morgan created. But I'm not going to share them here because this is a bit more about why can't I go on point yet, okay? And really for 9-10-year-olds, some of these exercises are a little bit hard. They won't want to do that, they won't enjoy it. They might do, and I don't want them to get disheartened. These are more the exercises you want to be doing at about age 11 to build yourself up to going on point. So, and maybe enhance what your teacher's already teaching you, or maybe to use this with your teacher to help yourself get ready for point work. It's a long process. It's about building up the strength, building up the mobility of your ankle, and also the mobility of your leg. You want to be able to stretch that leg enough so that the leg is properly straight and the ankle properly straight. Some people actually find that quite hard. If their hamstring's a little bit tight, they might find that their knee doesn't fully stretch. Again, you can't change bone, but you can change the muscles. So making sure that the hamstrings are gently stretched enough so that they can fully stretch their leg as well will help go on point. So it's a long process, it's a slow process, but if you do it properly, they will be able to go on point. And if they do it with a teacher, please do not allow your child to get point shoes without working with a teacher. And please don't buy point shoes before the teacher has said, yes, you're ready. Because it's not worth paying out for point shoes that they're going to grow out of before they can actually go up on point, okay? Please don't buy points on Amazon or Temu or anywhere like that, because they're point shoes that you'll get from a reputable shop like Block or Freed or Capezio or anyone like that. They will have been pretty much handmade. I know the Freed ones are handmade. They'll be made specifically, they'll have the correct strength and the support, and please, when you do get that yay, the big tick to say yes, you can get point shoes, and again your teacher will say this as well, please get them properly fitted. Yes, you need to book an appointment with either your local dance store or a store in London where they have you've got lots of different dance stores of different brands. So you want to go around all of them to kind of find the one that works best for you, because every brand is slightly different. And you want to have time to try on several different pairs and see what they feel like. Yeah, so you don't want to be rushed with this. And you don't want to buy a pair just for the sake of having a pair of point shoes, because they'll be really uncomfortable and they'll be hard to get properly up on point. So again, be patient, okay? So I hope that's helped, and I hope that reassures some of your parents that your dance teacher isn't being slow and that your child's not going to fall behind. Even if they're like 14 or 15 when they go on point, they're not going to fall behind. If they've been working correctly with their legs and feet, they will have the mobility and the strength already, so going on point will not be such a challenge for them. And actually being a little bit more mature physically and mentally is actually a good thing. Anyway, I will see you soon. Take care. Bye. Oh, if you want to dance with me, I have my own school, obviously, so if you're local to Rochester and you have a child, absolutely drop me a line and we can talk about dance classes. If you're not local, I would say you want to be finding a good local dance school, yes. Obviously during COVID, we all went online. However, when you're working when you can go to a class in person, ideally you want to be doing that. So with a child, I would recommend going to a live class in person on site with your local dance school. Check the teacher out, make sure that they're working under a recognised syllabus, that they've done the training, they're insured and all that. A lot of people don't check. Yes, please do, because it's your child, and especially if they're going to go on point, you want to make sure that that teacher knows what they're doing. It takes a long time to get on point, and it takes a lot of training as a teacher to understand fully the ramifications of not doing it properly, okay? And also how to do it properly. If you're an adult and you think, I fancy dancing, drop me a line or check out the class in the caption. Join my mailing list, and as a result of that, by joining my mailing list, you get access to a free bonus ballet class as a gift, as a thank you for joining the mailing list. And then if you like that class, you could join the Bridge Ballet Club, where you get to take ballet class anytime, night or day. We also do have live classes online anytime you fancy as well. So you might want to join us live online if the hours work, if the schedule works for you. See you later. Take care. Bye.